International pressures have continuously mounted on Israel to quit its military offensive on the tiny, powerless Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip and rarely accept the highly favorable proposal for an immediate ceasefire. The latest voice of concerns and calls for peaceful solution to the conflict in the Palestinian territory were conveyed by celebrities participating in the 96th Academy Awards last Sunday.
We're late. The Palestinian protest shut down the Oscars tonight.
Stars, including musicians Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell, Poor Things star Mark Ruffalo, and comedian Ramy Youssef, wore red pins during the 96th Academy Awards ceremony last Sunday. The pin symbolizes collective support for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, the release of all the hostages, and for the urgent delivery of humanitarian aid to civilians in Gaza. Prior to Sunday's ceremony, the red pins were seen at the Grammys and the Director Guild of America, or DGA Awards, in February. The pins were distributed by Artists for Ceasefire, a group of celebrities and entertainment industry members who collectively signed a letter late in October asking United States President Joe Biden to demand a ceasefire as well as the safe release of captives in Gaza. The celebrities' gestures were only the latest international campaign for key global actors to put pressure on Israel to immediately quit its heinous acts and agree for a ceasefire in Gaza. International pressure has spiked over the high Palestinian death toll and the dire humanitarian crisis sparked by the massive Israeli military campaign that followed Hamas' October 7, 2023 deadly cross-border attack and hostage-taking. For spiritual reasons, the Palestinian question will always be a major political issue in Indonesia, the country with the largest Muslim population in the world. As a matter of principle, Indonesia has no formal diplomatic ties with Israel, so long as the decades-long apartheid project in Palestine land continues. And Indonesians today have more obvious reasons to reject Israel, not just because of religious solidarity. Indonesia, a prime mover for the 1955 Conference of mostly then newly independent Asian African nations, has been a strong proponent for the freedom of the Palestine. As the convener of the 1955 conference in Bandung, West Java, Indonesia played a key role that led to a collective commitment from an emergent global south to rid the world of the vestige of colonialism. Palestine was the only participant at the Bandung conference that had not enjoyed freedom. This fact was acknowledged by the country's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Retno LP Marsudi, at the start of this year, which she described as a geopolitical debt. Addressing a hearing at the International Court of Justice, or ICJ, in The Hague, the Netherlands, on February 23, 2024, Retno called on the World Court to declare Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory illegal, urging Tel Aviv to withdraw its military from the enclaves without any preconditions or negotiations. The week-long hearing followed a request made at the UN General Assembly in late 2022 for the court's opinion on the legal consequences of Israeli policies and practices in Palestinian territories, including East Jerusalem. Earlier, at a meeting of a group of 20 foreign ministers in Brazil on February 22nd, Retno called on the world's group of 20 largest economies to play a collective role in pushing for a permanent ceasefire with haste and by any means necessary. She cited that the impact of the war in Gaza has spread everywhere and threatened global peace and security. Her call for a ceasefire came after another failed attempt at the February 20th UN Security Council meeting to act on Israel's conduct in Gaza. The The initiative was vetoed by the United States representative and was roundly criticized at the G20 meeting led by Brazil. The US has so far vetoed 3 ceasefire resolutions at the UN. Tel Aviv has not heeded international calls to stop the campaign and skipped the ICJ proceedings, labeling them despicable and disgraceful. But analysts have warned that the course of action could further isolate Israel internationally. Some of Israel's supporters, such as Canada, have been showing reluctance to support Israel's attack due to mounting pressure by their own citizens and the majority of the international community. Canada, which was initially scheduled to deliver a statement at the ICJ on February the 20th that was projected to be heavily in favor of Israel, pulled out at the last minute, leaving Tel Aviv without allies in the first 2 days of the court proceedings. Countries key to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Gaza's Hamas, as well as neighboring nations that have witnessed the decades-long occupation, have joined forces to urge the ICJ to act accordingly. Jordan, a key country that holds custodianship of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Israeli-occupied East Jerusalem, argued during a hearing at the ICJ on February the 22nd that Tel Aviv violated international law and therefore it must be brought to justice. ICJ's judgment on the matter, called an advisory opinion, in fact will not be legally binding. However, it may carry significant moral weight in future international efforts on the Palestinian issue. A vast majority of global communities involving a wide spectrum of state and non-state actors, as well as individuals, including the above-mentioned celebrities, have increasingly voiced their opposition to the Israeli continuing Gaza offensive and called for immediate settlement to the Palestine-Israel conflict. Persuasive approaches so far has yet to bear fruits in bringing Israel to agree for a peaceful settlement to the decades-long conflict. A more direct approach that will force Israel to favor towards a ceasefire and eventually comply with a highly favorable two-state solution is largely anticipated. It should begin with an embargo by countries whose military equipment and weaponry have been used in Israel's offensive on the Palestine. The next step is for chief international financiers to quit providing financial support for Israel. From there on, we may expect an end to the conflict.